This, in my opinion, is the worst GPU release
This
I
one
can
not
remember.
only has stagnated, it has stagnated marvelously.
Literally any modern card that you purchase right now is an upgrade for the RX 6500 XT. Now, when this card was announced and released back in, it had a lot of negative reviews because of its limitation. But now that graphics card prices have stabilized and everything seems to be available, let's see if upgrading that card to a much more beefier card like this one, the RX 7800 XT, is worth it in 2023, and how much more performance will we gain if we buy something like this that's probably about triple the price. Okay, let's start off with Call of Duty Modern Warfare synthetic benchmark, and here we have competitive settings of 1080p for the RX 6500 XT and RX 7800 XT, and look at the difference there, boys. That's more than 3 times, like 91 FPS compared to 261 FPS average FPS, and look at the 1% lows. That's almost triple, I think more than triple. So yeah, huge difference there, and even at 1080p we are GPU bound in here. Let's see if we enable FSR 2.1 for our RX 6500 XT and see if there's any difference. With FSR 2.1 on our RX 6500 XT, it has improved our FPS a little bit, but there's still a huge difference, about 150 FPS difference compared to the native RX 7800 XT, and the 1% low. Oh, look at that frame time spike there for our RX 6500 XT. So yeah, even with that FSR 2.1 boost on frames, it's still no match for RX 7800 XT. As I've seen, that's almost triple the FPS. Let's have a look at Mazrah. And here we have Mazrah with our native 1080p competitive settings on both RX 6500 XT and RX 7800 XT, and once again, huge difference, much more consistent frame times on our RX 7800 XT, like that's more than double average FPS. You can see those frame times, status there. So yeah, big difference, definitely big difference. Let's try FSR 2.1. Here we have FSR 2.1 on our RX 6500 XT compared to 1080p native on our RX 7800 XT. Still no difference. That's almost like more than double gains on this one. So yeah, no contest, boys. And one more thing, did you know that you're watching a really small YouTube channel? Like, we only have 287 subscribers, boys, so if you like this type of content, consider subscribing. Thank you. Let's go back to Apex Legends, and here we have 1080p competitive settings in here, and yes, we're just limiting at 1080p because we're comparing the RX 6500 XT. Here we go, and look at the difference. We're maxed out on our FPS on our RX 7800 XT compared to 130 FPS. Let's check for stability here. Look at the frame times, it's much more straighter. Yep, definitely much more stable on our RX 7800 XT. Huge gains, definitely huge gains. Even on still shots, huge gains. Like, we've maxed out, whereas we only have 139 FPS average on this one. Look at the 0.1% lows. Huge difference as well. So yeah, definitely worth it if you're playing these two games. Let's move on to our next game, Fortnite, and once again we are testing all 3 APIs for Fortnite. Let's start out with DX11 competitive settings. Here we go, DX11. Now DX11 is like GPU bound on our RX 6500 XT, and you can see our FPS in here leaning towards the RX 7800 XT. You've got more FPS on the average FPS, but 1% lows are very close to each other. 0.1% low is favoring the RX 6500. Now for the GPU power, it's only like about double GPU power in here. Pretty good for both ends, but if you want more FPS, definitely go for the RX 7800 XT. Not as much percentage gains as what we expected, but yeah, let's go with DX12, which is probably a much more GPU demanding scenario. Here we go, DX12, once again competitive settings for both cards. Okay, right there, and you can see already a huge difference between the two. Okay, so we've got double the FPS here on one end. And look at that one. It's GPU balding as well on our RX 7800 XT. This is 1080p voice on competitive settings, and there's some lead there for our huge lead on our RX 7800 XT for average FPS. 1% lows is very close. Got that guy. And yes, this RX 7800 XT. I like this one. Look at that temperatures on this one, boys. 50 degrees. Almost, well, more than double the GPU power on the cards. Let's move on to everyone's favorite API, performance mode. So yes, we know that AMD is not very good with performance mode. Let's see how this one performs, and once again you can see performance mode quite good. Like, look at that one, really good FPS on both ends. Obviously still leaning towards the RX 7800 XT. We are not GPU bound on the RX 7800 XT, but we're still getting better performance. Apart from the 0.1% lows, but everything else is quite good in there. Look at that one, right? Significant difference in favor of the RX 7800 XT. Boom. So that's still considered an upgrade if you're planning to swap over to this card from the RX 6500 XT. Now let's go fix these GPU clocks, because we know with performance mode, as you noticed earlier, these don't clock very well. So for RX 6500 XT, we're gonna bump the minimum clocks to 2600 MHz, and for the RX 7800 XT, we're going to bump it to 2400 MHz. And you can see in here, boys, our RX 7800 XT is still not reaching that 2400 MHz, whereas the GPU clock on the on the RX 6500 XT is definitely reaching that one. Really close performance here, but still in favor to the RX 7800 XT. Very close. Oh, so yeah, that's something to consider in there. Alright. Yep. Yes, although the 1% lows will go, yep, basically everything leaning toward the RX 7800. Not as much gains as the other games, but let's move on to our next game, which is Valorant. And here we have 1080p competitive settings. Here we go. Let's start this off. And look at that one, boys. It looks like on our RX 6500 XT, we are actually gaining, well, on the lead on our 1% and 0.1% lows at the start of this benchmark. So, but they're pretty close to each other, right? The only difference, noticeable difference here is the GPU power. Obviously, we've got much more GPU power demand on the RX 7800 XT. Let's have a look at some GPU intensive scenes like this one. Well, heavy action scenes. Look at that one. We are definitely better on the 1% lows on our RX 6500 XT, and even on the 0.1% lows. That's something unexpected, considering this is a GPU bound scenario. Let's move on to our next game, PUBG. And once again, we're setting up competitive settings at DX11 Enhance. Okay, starting with some basic runs, and you can see right there, boys, significant difference, almost like 200 plus FPS difference in favor of the RX 7800 XT. So that's definitely a huge jump right there. Even on the 1% lows, significant as well, and the 0.1% lows, significant as well. So that's definitely a huge upgrade if you're playing PUBG and you've upgraded to the RX 7800 XT at competitive 1080p settings. Let's go for some heavy action scenes in here, and this is quite interesting. Look at the average FPS 1% and 0.1% lows, very consistent on our RX 7800 XT, whereas on the RX 6500 XT you will see some quite bit of a difference. There we go. This is where the issue, and I've tried this multiple times on both cards. Now this is like definitely the best runs, consistent runs after significant testing. So definitely a huge upgrade. We will also be looking at other cards and see if it actually makes sense to upgrade from our older cards, and see if we can move into better cards. If you are interested in something like that, let us know in the comment section. And if you're interested to know on how this RX 7800 XT performs on a real world gaming scenario, click this video right here, and we'll see you guys over there.